In the Quran, when stopping at a word, the vowel or tanween at the end of that word will turn into sukoon, whether it was fatha, dhamma, kasra, or their tanween version. So we say, عَمَّ يَتَسَاءَلُونَ, without the fatha on the noon at the end here. And we also say, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ, also without the tanween dhamma at the end of the word. And in both cases, we applied sukoon at the end. This method of stopping is called as-sukoon al-mahd, or in English, pure sukoon. But there are two other ways that you can use to stop at words in the Quran. They are called al-ishmam and al-rawm. So what do these mean? Well, let's start with al-rawm. Simply put, al-rawm means that you'll pronounce the vowel at the end of the word that you're stopping at, but not fully. Scholars determined al-rawm to be about 1/3 of the duration of the full vowel, which means that you'll be leaving out more than what you will pronounce. So the vowel at the end of the word you're stopping at will be pronounced very lightly, to the point that you have to listen carefully to notice it. So we say, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. So here I said, نَسْتَعِينُ. So there is a very slight dhamma at the end of the word nasta'in. And at the same time, I did not fully pronounce the dhamma at the end of the word and say, nasta'inu. Now this is a full dhamma. And the same case for the second example. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. I did not say al-falaq with a complete sukoon, and at the same time I did not say al-falaqi, because this is a full kasra, but it is about 1/3 of that kasra. And we say, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. Remember, al-rawm only applies to dhamma and kasra, but not on fatha. And when stopping at a word with tanween dhamma or tanween kasra, you will deal with this tanween as if it were the short version of this tanween. And then you will apply the same rule. You will pronounce 1/3 of that short vowel. Let us observe the following example to understand this even better. أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ أَلَمْ يَجْعَلْ كَيْدَهُمْ فِي تَضْلِيلٍ وَأَرْسَلَ عَلَيْهِمْ طَيْرًا أَبَابِيلَ. Notice at the end of the first ayah there is rawm in the word al-fil, and I said al-fili with a very slight kasra, and I did the same thing with tanween kasra at the end of the second ayah, because then I dealt with the tanween kasra as if it were kasra, and I applied the same rule, which is 1/3 of the kasra, tadlili. But at the end of the third ayah, the word ended with fatha, so the only option that I have here is pure sukoon, and that's why I have to say ababil with sukoon at the end of the word. So, al-rawm is applied when stopping at a word and you pronounce 1/3 of the short vowel at the end of that word. Now moving to al-ishmam. Ishmam is a skill that cannot be heard. It can only be seen. That is one of the reasons why the Quran was passed down face to face, in order to pass down skills like this. Ishmam is basically forming your mouth to the shape of dhamma, and you perform it after pronouncing the last letter of that word that you're stopping at, which then acts as if you said the dhamma at the end of the word, while in fact you didn't pronounce it at all. You only made the mouth movement. So why are we forming the mouth into dhamma shape in particular? Well, ishmam can only be applied on dhamma, not fatha or kasra. So in practice, it will look like this. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. So these were the basics of Ar-Rawm and Ishmam. And this by no means covers everything there is to know about them. So now is the question. Would it then be possible if I ignore both of these skills, Ar-Rawm and Ishmam, and just stick to pure sukoon when stopping in the Quran? And the answer is yes and no. Yes, because you can indeed apply a sukoon al-mahd all the way in the Quran without ever needing al-ishmam or ar-rawm. And no, because as a matter of fact, applying ar-rawm or ishmam is mandatory in one single position in the Quran, and it is found in Surah Yusuf, which is the only spot in the Quran where ar-rawm or ishmam is in the middle of the word rather than at the end of it. And in order to get this ayah right, you must at least know the basics of ar-rawm and al-ishmam, which you do by now. The ayah in question is number 11 from Surah Yusuf. You will notice that there is a black dot on the word ta'manna to indicate that there is something special going on here that requires your attention. This symbol was also used another time in the Quran. Can you tell me in which ayah this symbol was also used? Let me know in the comments below. So in the case of this ayah, we should apply ar-rawm or al-ishmam. But how can we apply it on a letter that has fatha on it? We've just learned that ar-rawm and ishmam cannot be applied on fatha in the Quran. And the answer is, well, the word ta'manna is originally ta'manuna. So it is the verb ta'man, and added to it the plural pronoun suffix na, forming the word ta'manuna, with noon with dhamma followed by another noon that has fatha. However, because there are three nasal sounds following one another, the meme and then the 2 times noon, this made pronouncing this word heavy for both speaker and listener. And so the first noon with dhamma was fused with the second noon with fatha, which made the word sound lighter. But now, how are we going to compensate for the noon with dhamma now that it is completely hidden behind the other noon? And this is exactly where ishmam or ar-rawm, for that matter, come into play. In other words, we apply ishmam or ar-rawm on the noon with dhamma, which exists in the original word. So how do you perform it then? First, let's see ar-rawm. To perform ar-rawm on this ayah, you will pronounce the noon with dhamma very lightly and quickly move on to the next noon, which is essentially applying ikhtilas, which I explained before in this lesson. And it should sound like this. قالوا يا أبانا ما لك لا تأمننا على يوسف. Notice I did not fully pronounce the dhamma on the noon, so I did not say لا تأمننا. But you should move very quickly on the noon, moving on to the next noon very quickly. تأمننا. And this is how you perform it with ar-rawm. As for reading this ayah with ishmam, remember we said ishmam is forming your mouth in the shape of dhamma. So we'll perform that movement when pronouncing the word ta'manna. And here are two methods to get this right. Method number 1. You start Ishmam at the same time when producing the noon. So you do both at the same time, which would then compensate for the noon with dhamma that would otherwise be pronounced at that time. Like that. قالوا يا أبانا ما لك لا تأمنا على يوسف. Method number 2. You start Ishmam after you start pronouncing the noon and during the ghunnah of the noon. And it will look like that. قالوا يا أبانا ما لك لا تأمنا على يوسف. So which one should you do? Well, both are correct, and you should choose the one that you can perform correctly. I personally learned to perform the first one, but we cannot say that the other method is wrong. Finally, is there an option where I can just read تأمنا without Ishmam or Raum? And the answer is no, that is not possible. You must apply one of these when reading this ayah. And the reason is that this is how the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, taught it to us. And we must read it exactly in the same way. But if you want to learn more about whether it is a sin to leave such a Tajweed rule out, then you should check out this lesson. You'll find its link in the description. Thanks for watching. If you want to start your journey to learn the Tajweed of the Quran, you can click on this link. And if you want to understand the Quran in Arabic, then you should click on that link. And finally, I hope you've learned something new today, and I will see you next time.